Everybody, this is Group 4, Joey Wright, Devin Brevig, and Derek Janis, and today we are going to be talking to you about social network addiction. It is quite the problem, and it's a very complex problem, and with that, let's dive right into sort of what it entails and what it's about. So simply put, social network addiction is when individuals find their lives impacted by the excessive use of social networking services. Now, let's define right here at the start what a social networking service is. That's any service that defined by Techipedia as an online platform that allows users to create a public profile and interact with others. So that's Facebook, that's Twitter, could be Instagram, Snapchat, any number of the big players, or even could be LinkedIn, could be a bunch of different things. So again, an online platform that allows users to create a public profile and interact with others is what we're going to define as a social network. And a little bit more about addiction. Addiction Center notes that SNA, should just say SNA or addiction, can impact its victims much like any other addiction can. AddictionCenter.com and the Addiction Center is a great resource for this sort of stuff. Users who become addicted to social platforms can experience mood modification, withdrawal symptoms, conflicts, relapses, just like any other addiction may cause, those sorts of problems, not just inherent to this type of addiction. They also say that social networking can begin to cause problems when users view it as a coping mechanism for real-life strife. Pardon me. You'll hear us say a lot today about how, social networking sites, when people post on Facebook, Instagram, for example, they are posting just kind of the idealistic version of them and the best version of them, the Hollywood version that they want everyone to see. So a lot of times people, going through depression, anxiety, tough stretches, they'll go on Instagram and Facebook and they'll post the good stuff, highlights, if you will, so that people think that they're not really hurting in real life when in fact they are. So, when people enter this kind of alternate reality, that's when we can start to see a lot of these problems pop up and manifest themselves in tough ways. So we'll go ahead and move along here. What constitutes an addiction? I will turn it over to Devin, and he's going to tell us kind of what constitutes an addiction.
All right, so the Addiction Center classifies social networking addiction as a behavioral addiction. And behavioral addictions cause people to become addicted to certain behaviors. For example, eating like food, addicted to gaming, addicted to sex, gambling, plastic surgery, those kind of behaviors, the physical behaviors that are what are included in behavioral addictions. And these differ from substance abuse, where the people become dependent on certain substances and their dosages.
Absolutely. Great definition, Devin. And yeah, we talk about, and as we move on to the next slide, but when we talk about addiction and things like cocaine and heroin, substances, that your body kind of needs those substances to function, but social media and those things, it's a behavior that causes your body to release pleasure and those hormones. So we take a look at some examples of social network addiction. These are a couple fictional examples, kind of based on people the three of us know and have come across. Fictional names, though, so we're not taking any shots at any Rickies out there. But Ricky, we're going to use him as our first example of three. College student, he's about our age, and he's become overwhelmed with the urge to check his Facebook page, such to the point where he can't be around his friends or family without constantly refreshing, looking for the hottest and latest statuses and the new things in his feed, messages even. Ricky's he's big into that Facebook. And when he's without his phone or computer, he's not a very pleasant Ricky to be around. He's not the best version of himself. He experiences symptoms consistent with withdrawal. He's very moody. He's, just kind of crabby and anxious. You can tell he wants that phone and he's missing that part, and he's got those withdrawal symptoms. So when Ricky's not with his Facebook, he can be quite the crabby person to be around, and that's just because he needs it. He needs it at this point. He's on it so much. We'll scoot on ahead, take a look at our pal Tiffany here. And Tiffany, much like Ricky, a college-aged a woman. She's about our age, and she's always checking and posting on her Snapchat, her feed. That should say her feed, not he feed, but it's just constant stories, from dusk to dawn. And stories, of course, are what you post on Snapchat. It's not posts; they call them stories. She's posting things, dusk to dawn, 6, 7, 8 a.m. She's up and she's going for 18 plus hours out of the day. She's on her Snapchat. Can't be around friends or family without being on her phone, and that's going to cause rifts to form between her and those who care about her the most, because she's always on her phone, snapping away and kind of living in this virtual world that, quite frankly, just is not reality. And Devin, Derek, I know we know our fill of Tiffany's in this world today.
Absolutely. Yep. There's definitely a few Tiffany's I can think of off the top of my head that are present in my life.
Oh yeah, 100%. They're always snapping at something. But yeah, and that, deep divides. The people who want to get close to Tiffany can't because she's just always on her phone. So take a look now at our third example. Bill is also a college-aged male, and he's got a problem with Instagram. Now, whether that's posting pictures on his story or using the messaging part of the service to send his friends texts and memes, he's just on the app so much that even his friends, they're in group chats with him, they've created other group chats to hide from his constant stream of messages. They're, quite frankly, just like, Bill, shut up, man. We don't care. You're snapping us and sending us things at all hours of the day. We want to get away from you a little bit. And much like Ricky and Tiffany, Bill is always on his phone in social settings, and his buddies will be hanging around and he'll just be kind of lurking on his phone, not really part of the program. And he's got withdrawal symptoms when he's not plugged in. And all these three, whether we're talking Ricky, Tiffany, or Bill, they're always on their phone such that it affects their grades, and that can affect us college students and us college-aged individuals in that way, where we're not quite focused on what we're needing to be focused on if we're too busy trying to snap and on these social media platforms. So instead of spending his time doing useful things, he's on his phone. And Derek, we're going to let you tell us about how can I tell if I have an addiction? This isn't just a social media addiction, but kind of these are consistent across all forms of addiction.
Sure thing. One way you can tell if you have an addiction is if you have lack of control or inability to stay away from a substance or behavior. Like you can't go an hour without your phone. Another way is decreased socialization, like abandoning commitments or ignoring relationships, like we've seen with those three examples. They're abandoning their friends, they're not socializing, they're on their phones all the time. Very similar case, and not the exact same. They're ignoring risk factors, like sharing needles despite potential consequences. You can say being on Facebook 24/7 is sort of like it. You're addicted to it. You're on it all the time, and you're not seeing that this is a problem. Physical effects like withdrawal symptoms or needing higher dosage. Once again, we see this in the examples. They're crabby, their behaviors changes without their phones.
Oh, exactly. And how social network addictions can affect victims. Addiction Center, a great source for this kind of stuff. I would encourage you to check it out if you're experiencing any sort of addiction. They say that an increase in social media can have an adverse effect on people's mental health, especially here. And we look at that. It can cause low self-esteem and lower general mental health. We talk about depression, anxiety, some of that stuff starts creeping in here. And it's what I talked about kind of at the top of this presentation, where people are so apt on social media to post, and some people do post the lows, but a lot of people are just posting the highs. Their nice cars, nice houses, the nice things that people see on the outside. They're not really posting the real them. They're just posting the highlights. And when people see that, sometimes it causes them to try to want to keep up with the Joneses a little bit. And, why don't I have that? Why don't I have this? And it kind of creates people this spiral into this depression and this weird state when they see people and they just try to compete with them, and they can't really do it. Social media users can develop anxiety and depression because of that. They can also develop FOMO, which is an intense fear of missing out. It's this extreme fear that is caused when people get anxious when they see that they weren't included in an event, or they weren't invited to a birthday party. If I see a Facebook post, I wasn't invited to this party, I start thinking, why wasn't I invited? Why couldn't I have a good time? with these people, and that FOMO, it can really cause some problems for people's self-esteem for sure. So those are just a couple ways how social network addictions can affect victims. As we move along, the warning signs of SNA. We'll refer to Devin for this, but here's some warning signs of social network addiction.
Yeah, so Addiction Center, again, very, very useful source in this whole presentation. They list the following as early warning signs of social networking addiction. Spending a lot of time thinking about / planning to use social media. So you're sitting in class one day and you're like, well, I'm going to start formulating my next tweet that I'm going to release after this class. Things like that. Feeling the urge to use social media more and more. So you kind of have this nagging feeling that you need to be checking Facebook, need to be checking Instagram. You're going to get a Snapchat soon, so you need to be right on top of it. Feeling the urge to use social media to forget about personal problems. And it's not such a bad thing to use social media to kind of escape for a little bit, but when you use it as a coping mechanism for dealing with other things rather than dealing with your personal problems, you just go to social media and kind of forget about everything else around you. Trying to reduce the use of social media without success. So if you try and cut back on how often you're on Twitter, scrolling through other social medias, and you aren't successful, that could be an early warning sign that you have a social networking addiction. Becoming restless or troubled if unable to use social media. So a lot like other addictions, you start to crave it. And then lastly, using social media so often that it impacts job abilities. So if you find yourself at your work computer and you're scrolling through Facebook all day, not getting any work done, it might be a kind of pointer that you have or are working towards a social networking addiction.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How to recover from a social network addiction. Luckily, we talk about this. It's pretty simple. And as we'll see on the next slide, not a lot of people relatively suffer from this addiction. A lot of people who do can cure it kind of on their own. They can just set boundaries and reduce screen time. As the Addiction Center says, those are probably the two best ways to do it. A lot of people can do it by themselves. Professional help is also an option. Although most people can recover, the Addiction Center notes that there are those options for victims to reach out and receive help. So good to know that they can kind of get rid of it with relative ease. We'll move on and look at some numbers. And Derek will let you kind of walk us through social network addiction by the numbers.
Sure thing. According to MetaKicks, there's some statistics that estimate that 210 million people worldwide suffer from internet addictions. That's quite a bit of people. 240 million Americans check Facebook on a daily basis. 71% of people sleep with a phone next to their beds. This could increase their time using it. Furthermore, Addiction Center notes that 20% of children who spend more than 3 hours on their phones daily will show signs of depression. This number may have only increased because of the pandemic we are facing right now.
Absolutely. Good insight. Root causes. Harvard notes that people like to talk about themselves. So in essence, when you do a lot of that on social media, people become narcissistic, and reward centers in the brain kind of reward people who talk about themselves. So this causes social media to become more addictive. And that is one of, if not the single biggest cause of social network addiction among people. And as we land the plane, when we say me here, we all kind of help chip in on this. So we refer to this for all of us. We've never really considered ourselves at risk for social media addiction. Although there have been times the quarantine where we've been on it a little bit more. Social media, though, addiction can affect anyone, especially at the college level. And our advice to students who are kind of suffering from this is to kind of live in the moment, step away from the social media bubble, go out, go with your roommates, go with your friends, and just kind of unplug a little bit and go live. Don't worry about posting about it. Don't worry about what people think about it. Just go live your life, and just kind of let go. Don't really care. So that'll wrap it up for our social network addiction presentation. For Devin and Derek, I'm Joey Wright, and we hope that this was nice and informative for you as we teach about social network addiction.